They say a man's home is his castle, but as Tunde's heavy hand slammed against the polished mahogany dining table, sending the crystal wine glasses rattling, Damilola realized her castle was nothing but a soundproofed dungeon. "Please, Tunde, think of my condition," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper as she retreated until her spine hit the cold plaster wall. Her hands instinctively flew to her lower abdomen, shielding the tiny, fragile life growing inside her. Tunde didn't look like the charismatic real estate mogul the world worshipped. His eyes were red-blotted, his jaw clenched so tightly the muscles in his cheeks pulsed with pure rage. "You think because you carry my child you suddenly have a voice in this house?" he hissed, stepping so close she could smell the expensive cognac on his breath. "You are nothing but an ornament I bought, polished, and put on display. If I tell you to smile at the church gala tomorrow, you will smile until your face aches, or so help me, I will strip everything you think you own away from you." He reached out, his fingers gripping her chin with a bruising intensity that forced her to look into his dark, merciless eyes. He stared at her trembling lips, his expression suddenly shifting from malice to a terrifying transactional affection. He leaned down and pressed a hard, demanding kiss against her lips, a gesture devoid of love, designed only to seal her submission. Welcome to a story of hidden scars, high society deception, and the ultimate price of silence. Before we dive into how a modern fairy tale became a living nightmare, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below if you believe no one should ever have to suffer in silence. Your support helps us bring these stories of survival to light. To the rest of Lagos, and indeed to their 100,000 followers online, Damilola and Tunde were the blueprint of marital bliss. Their Instagram feed was a curated gallery of lavish vacations in Santorini, coordinated silk traditional outfits at high society weddings, and public displays of affection that made young couples dream. Tunde knew exactly how to play the part of the doting, deeply spiritual husband. Just 3 days prior, at the annual charity auction for Pastor Adebayon's foundation, Tunde had pulled Damilola close to his side on the red carpet under the flashing light of a dozen cameras. He had looked at her with such intense devotion that the crowd literally gasped in admiration. "My beautiful Damilola," he had said into the reporter's microphone, his voice smooth like velvet. "She is the anchor of my soul, the grace that God gave me to navigate this life." He had leaned down right there in front of the flashing cameras, pressing a tender, lingering kiss to her lips that sent the crowd into a frenzy of applause. Damilola had smiled, leaning into his warmth, playing her part to perfection, while her heart battered against her ribs like a trapped bird. Nobody saw the way his fingers dug viciously into her waist behind her back, a silent, painful warning to keep her answers short and let him dominate the interview. The deception followed them right into their sprawling Lekki mansion. The moment the heavy iron gates closed behind their armored vehicle, the loving husband died and the warden took his place. Damilola sat in the passenger seat, her knuckles white as she clutched her designer handbag. "Why did you look at the bank manager that way when he shook your hand?" Tunde asked, his tone flat, devoid of the warmth he had displayed seconds ago. "I was just being polite, Tunde. He is managing our joint account for the new charity initiative," she replied, her voice shaking despite her best effort to sound calm. "Don't lie to me," he roared, his fist striking the steering wheel. "You are flirting with him. You want everyone to think I am not enough for you. You want to ruin my reputation." Damilola felt tears stinging her eyes, but she forced them back. To cry was to provoke him further. "I love you, Tunde, please. I only have eyes for you," she whispered, reaching across the console to touch his arm. He swatted her hand away like an annoying insect. "Get out of the car and go to the room. I don't want to see your pathetic face right now." The isolation tightened like a noose around her neck as her pregnancy advanced into her second trimester. Damilola found herself locked in a golden cage, stripped of her autonomy, piece by piece. It started with her phone. Tunde had hired a private security team, claiming it was for the protection of his pregnant wife, but Damilola quickly realized their true purpose was to monitor her every movement. One afternoon, her mother, Amina, called to check on her. Damilola answered, her voice thick with exhaustion of keeping up appearances. "Mama, I've been feeling a bit overwhelmed lately," Damilola began, her voice cracking slightly. Before she could say anything else, the phone was violently snatched from her ear. Tunde stood over her, his face twisted in anger as he ended the call. "Who gave you permission to air our dirty laundry to your mother?" "Mama was just checking on the baby," Damilola cried, standing up to face him, her maternal instincts finally overriding her fear. "This is my mother, Tunde. You cannot cut me off from my own blood." Tunde took a step forward, his shadow completely engulfing her small frame. "I made you, Damilola. Before you met me, you were just a struggling boutique owner. Now you wear diamonds, you drive a custom SUV, and you live in luxury. Your mother has no say in this house. If I tell you to smile at the church gala tomorrow, you will smile until your face aches, or so help me, I will strip everything you think you own away from you." He reached out, his fingers gripping her chin with a bruising intensity that forced her to look into his dark, merciless eyes. He stared at her trembling lips, his expression suddenly shifting from malice to a terrifying transactional affection. He leaned down and pressed a hard, demanding kiss against her lips, a gesture devoid of love, designed only to seal her submission. But that night, as Tunde slept soundly beside her, snoring softly under the silk duvet, Damilola lay awake staring at the ceiling. The baby kicked inside her, a sharp, sudden movement that felt like a wake-up call. She realized with absolute clarity that Tunde's cruelty would not stop with her. If she did not find a way out, her daughter would grow up watching her mother be systematically destroyed, or worse, become Tunde's next victim. Fear was no longer an option. Survival had to take her place. Damilola quietly slipped out of bed, her bare feet making no sound on the polished wooden floor. She crept downstairs to the kitchen, her heart hammering against her ribs. Hidden deep within the back of a hollowed-out, unused kitchen cabinet, behind old boxes of imported china, lay an old smartphone she had secretly kept from her single days. She retrieved it, her hands shaking as she turned it on, ensuring the volume was completely muted. She sat in the dark, the faint glow of the screen illuminating her tear-stained face, and began to draft a meticulous digital diary of every threat, every bruise, and every silent torment. This was no longer just a marriage, it was a war zone, and she was finally gathering her weapons. The psychological torment escalated dramatically as the weeks rolled by, turning the mansion into a psychological minefield where Damilola had to walk on eggshells every single day. Tunde began utilizing financial starvation as a weapon of absolute control. Despite his millions, he abruptly deactivated her supplementary credit cards, claiming that her pregnancy brain was making her irresponsible with spending. Damilola found herself in the humiliating position of having to ask him for money to buy prenatal vitamins or basic groceries. "Why do you need 50,000 naira for groceries?" Tunde questioned one morning, casually flipping through a business magazine at the breakfast table, while she stood before him like a servant awaiting an allowance. "Everything has become expensive in the market, Tunde. The organic fruits and the supplements the doctor prescribed cost more now," she explained, keeping her hands clasped tightly behind her back to hide their trembling. He threw a stock of cash onto the table, the notes scattering across the marble surface. "Pick it up," he commanded, his eyes never leaving his magazine. Damilola froze, the insult burning deep into her soul. "Tunde, please don't do this," she whispered. "I said pick it up, Damilola. If you want to feed my child, learn to obey your provider." With a breaking heart, she knelt on the floor, picking up the scattered notes one by one, while Tunde watched her from above with a cruel, satisfied smirk. When she finished, he leaned down from his chair, grabbing her by the nape of her neck to pull her up toward him. He stared intensely into her eyes, checking to see if her spirit was completely broken yet. "You look so beautiful when you are humble, Dami," he murmured, his voice a sickeningly sweet contrast to the humiliation he had just inflicted. He pulled her close and kissed her, a deep, bruising kiss that tasted of her own bitter tears. He released her, telling her to go and get ready for the evening's dinner party. That night, they were hosting prominent members of the real estate board, and Tunde required his perfect wife to be on full display. Damilola spent 2 hours in front of the mirror, using heavy layers of concealer to hide the dark circles under her eyes caused by endless sleepless nights. When the guests arrived, she wore a stunning maternity gown, floating through the living room with a tray of appetizers, laughing at the men's dull jokes and complimenting their wives. Tunde watched her from across the room, giving her a subtle nod of approval that made a chill run down her spine. He walked over, wrapping a possessive arm around her waist, and loudly announced to the guests how blessed he was to have a wife who prioritized her home above all else. The guests toasted to their love, completely blind to the living ghost standing right in front of them. The breaking point arrived on a rainy Tuesday evening, just 2 months before her due date. Damilola had missed a call from Tunde because she was throwing up in the bathroom, a severe bout of morning sickness that left her weak and dehydrated. When Tunde arrived home, he didn't ask about her health. He kicked the bathroom door open, his face purple with rage. "Why didn't you pick up your phone?" he screamed, grabbing her by the upper arm and dragging her out into the bedroom. "I was sick, Tunde. I was throwing up," she cried, trying to pull away from his iron grip. "Don't give me that rubbish. You are deliberately ignoring me. Who were you talking to? Was it that doctor? Are you sleeping with him? Is this baby even mine?" The accusation hung heavily in the air, sharp and poisonous. Damilola stopped struggling. She looked at the man she had loved, the man she had sacrificed her career for, and felt a cold, hard finality settle into her chest. "How dare you?" she said, her voice dropping to a dangerously calm whisper. "I have endured your beatings, your insults, your isolation, but I will not allow you to insult the purity of my child." Tunde's eyes widened in disbelief at her sudden defiance. He raised his hand, threateningly close to her face. "Shut up," he roared. "You will not speak back to me in my own house." But instead of shrinking away as she usually did, Damilola stood her ground, staring directly into his eyes. "Strike me, Tunde," she challenged, her voice steady. "Strike your pregnant wife. Let's see if that makes you more of a man." Tunde's hand trembled in the air, his face contorting with a mixture of rage and sudden hesitation. He realized he couldn't afford a visible mark on her face with the anniversary gala just weeks away. He dropped his hand, letting out a harsh, mocking laugh. "Ha! You think you are brave now? We will see how brave you are when you are sleeping on the streets with nothing but the clothes on your back." He turned around and stormed out of the room, slamming the door so hard that the framed pictures of their wedding day rattled on the walls. Damilola collapsed onto the bed, her entire body shaking as the adrenaline washed out of her system. She reached down into her pocket and retrieved the hidden smartphone. The recording application was still running, having captured every single second of his vile accusations and verbal assault. She saved the audio file, uploading it directly to a secure cloud drive she had created under a fake name. The next morning, Tunde acted as if nothing had happened. He walked into the dining room where Damilola was sitting quietly, holding a cup of herbal tea. He walked up behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders and massaging them gently. "We had a little misunderstanding yesterday, Dami," he said, his voice smooth and untroubled. "Let's forget about it. We have a big event coming up. Our 10th wedding anniversary is in 2 weeks, and I have planned a magnificent celebration. It's going to be called the Decade of Devotion Gala. The governor will be there, the media will be there, and Pastor Adebayo will lead the opening prayers."
Damilola kept her eyes fixed on her teacup, her expression blank. "That sounds wonderful, Tunde," she whispered. He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to her neck before moving to her lips. He kissed her thoroughly, a gesture meant to re-establish his ownership over her body and mind. "You are going to wear a custom emerald dress I ordered from Paris," he continued, completely ignoring her lack of enthusiasm. "It's a bit tight around the waist, but you will make it work. I want everyone to see how beautiful my wife looks, even when she is heavy." Damilola smiled an empty smile, nodding her agreement. Inside, a fire was burning. She knew this gala would indeed be an event that Lagos would never forget, but not for the reasons Tunde imagined. As the days counted down to the grand gala, the pressure within the Lekki mansion became almost tangible, a suffocating weight that threatened to crush Damilola's resolve. Tunde was obsessed with every minute detail of the event, treating it more like a political campaign than a celebration of marriage. He forced Damilola to endure hours of dress fittings, completely ignoring her complaints that the heavily beaded emerald gown was pressing painfully against her pregnant stomach. "Stand straight, Damilola," he snapped during a fitting in their private living area, while the terrified tailor knelt on the floor adjusting the hem. "You are slumping. A virtuous woman stands with pride beside her husband. Do you want the photographers to capture you looking like a defeated market woman?" "I am in pain, Tunde. The burning of the corset is digging into my ribs," she pleaded, her face pale. Tunde walked over to the tailor, dismissing him with a cold wave of his hand. The moment the door closed, Tunde gripped Damilola's jaw, forcing her to look into the mirror. "Look at yourself," he whispered in her ear, his grip tightening until her teeth clicked together. "You are the envy of every woman in this city. You will wear this dress, you will stand on that stage, and you will read the speech I wrote for you word for word. If you ruin this night for me, Damilola, I swear the consequences will be something your entire family will feel." He leaned down, pressing a hard, joyless kiss to her trembling lips, leaving her standing alone in the center of the room, trapped in a sparkling prison of green silk and beads. Damilola returned to her room, her heart pounding with a mixture of terror and fierce determination.
She locked the door, retrieved her hidden phone from the kitchen cabinet during a moment when the guards were distracted, and contacted her childhood friend Ngozi, who worked as a digital media coordinator for the event planning company Tunde had hired. Ngozi had always suspected something was deeply wrong in Damilola's marriage, having noticed the subtle flinches and the fading light in her friend's eyes over the years. "Damilola, are you sure about this?" Ngozi asked over an encrypted voice call, her voice filled with anxiety. "Tunde is a powerful man. If this backfires, he would destroy you." "He is already destroying me, Ngozi," Damilola replied, her voice steady and laced with a terrifying calm. "If I don't do this now, my daughter will be born into this nightmare. I have all the evidence uploaded to the drive. I need you to swap the anniversary tribute video file in the main media booth right before Tunde calls me up for my speech. Can you do it?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line, followed by a deep breath. "I will do it, Damilola, for you and for the baby. Just stay strong." The night of the Decade of Devotion Gala arrived, transforming the grand ballroom of the Echo Hotel into a breathtaking paradise of white roses, crystal chandeliers, and cascading golden lights. The room was packed to capacity with the absolute elite of Nigerian society: billionaire tech founders, elegant politicians, high-ranking church leaders, and social media influencers who were already live-streaming the event to millions worldwide. Tunde moved through the crowd like a king, his laughter ringing out loud and clear, his arm firmly wrapped around Damilola's waist. He was the picture of supreme confidence, dressed in a sharp, bespoke black tuxedo that contrasted perfectly with Damilola's glittering emerald gown.
every time a prominent guest congratulated them, Tunde would pull Damilola closer, planting a sweet public kiss on her cheek or her lips, making the crowd cool in admiration. "See how much he loves her," a woman whispered nearby. "She is truly the luckiest woman in Lagos." Damilola maintained her flawless smile, her lips moving mechanically as she greeted the guests, while internally she was reciting a silent prayer for strength. She could feel the heavy weight of the hidden smartphone tucked securely inside the custom silk clutch bag she held tightly against her side. The master of ceremonies cleared his throat, his voice booming through the high-end sound system, signaling the start of the main presentation. "Ladies and gentlemen, please direct your attention to the main stage as we welcome our host, the man of the hour, Chief Tunde Alao." The ballroom erupted into deafening applause as Tunde stepped up to the microphone, his smile radiant under the bright spotlights. He delivered a flawless, deeply moving speech about the sacred nature of marriage, the importance of patience, and how his success was entirely built on the foundation of his peaceful home. "And now," he said, his voice dropping to a tender emotional register, "I want to call upon the love of my life, my beautiful wife, Damilola, to join me on stage as we share a special video tribute documenting our 10 years of grace." Damilola stood up, the heavy emerald dress feeling like a suit of armor. She walked up the stairs, her eyes locking with Ngozi, who gave a subtle, trembling nod from the tech booth at the back of the hall. Tunde handed her the microphone, whispering a final dark warning under his breath as he pulled her in for a public embrace. "Read the script, Dami. Don't play games." He kissed her forehead, stepping back to let her take the center stage. Damilola looked out at the sea of faces, the flashing cameras, and the expectant smiles of the society that had worshipped her prison. She took a deep breath, her hand steady as she raised the microphone. "Good evening, distinguished ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice echoing clearly through the massive hall. "For 10 years, you have watched a beautiful fairy tale on your screens. You have celebrated our love, envied our lifestyle, and praised my husband as the perfect man." Tunde smiled warmly from the side of the stage, nodding encouragingly. "But tonight," she continued, her tone suddenly shifting to a sharp, icy clarity, "I want to show you the real price of that gold. I want to show you the private reality behind the public image." She turned around, pointing directly at the massive LED screen behind her. Before Tunde or his security team could realize what was happening, the screen flickered to life, but it wasn't a romantic montage of their vacations. Instead, a massive, crystal-clear audio waveform appeared, and Tunde's voice, filled with raw, terrifying malice, boomed through the high-end sound speakers of the Echo Hotel ballroom. "You are nothing but an ornament I bought. If I tell you to smile, you will smile until your face aches. You want to ruin my reputation. I will strip everything away from you. You want to ruin my reputation. I will strip everything away from you." The recording played on, followed immediately by giant screenshots of his text messages, degrading her, threatening her mother's apartment, and questioning the paternity of her unborn child. The ballroom dropped into a dead, horrifying, absolute silence. The smiles froze on the faces of the billionaires and politicians. Pastor Adebayo stood up from the high table, his jaw dropping in sheer disbelief. Tunde's face transformed from a mask of confidence into a grotesque distortion of pure panic and rage. "Shut it down," he screamed, sprinting towards the tech booth. "Shut it down now." But Ngozi had locked the control room door from the inside. Tunde spun around, storming towards Damilola on the stage, his fist clenched, completely forgetting the hundreds of cameras recording his every move. "You ruined me," he roared, lunging at her. But before he could touch her, a group of high society men, including the governor's security detail, stepped onto the stage, physically restraining him and pinning him to the floor. Damilola stood tall, her emerald dress glittering under the lights, tears streaming down her face, but her shoulders were completely straight. The silence was broken. The lie was shattered. The aftermath of that explosive night shook Lagos society to its very core, triggering a massive cultural conversation about the hidden nature of domestic abuse within affluent homes. Tunde's real estate empire crumbled within days as major investors pulled their funding to distance themselves from the public relations nightmare. The legal battle that followed was fierce and draining, but Damilola's meticulous documentation proved irrefutable in court, securing her a protective order, full custody of her daughter, and a fair settlement that ensured their financial independence. Today, Damilola sits in a beautiful, sunlit living room of her own modest apartment, a space filled with the genuine sound of her baby daughter's laughter rather than the suffocating silence of fear. She is no longer a prop in someone else's life. She is the author of her own destiny. Her story is a powerful reminder that healing does not come from performing perfection for the world, but from having the immense courage to embrace your truth, speak your reality, and reclaim your personal sovereignty. Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end of this incredible journey of liberation. If Damilola's victory inspired you today, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and share your thoughts in the comment section below. We would absolutely love to know where in the world are you watching this powerful story from. Drop your country or city in the comments. Stay safe and always remember that your voice is your ultimate power.